Welcome to the Senior Hour. I'm Barbara Cochran with my co-host Dr. Jean Dorio on your hometown station AM 1220 KHTS. The Senior Hour is sponsored by Comfort Keepers in Home Care and Advanced Audiology. And I think Jean is probably seeing patients or running a little bit late. And our guest this morning is Mike Doherty, Community Relations Representative for the Behavioral Health Department of Henry Mayo Newhall Hospital. Wow, that's a mouthful, Mike.
It is. It is a mouthful. Hello, it's nice to be back on the show, Barbara. It's been a while since I've been here.
Yes, it has been. So what are we going to talk about this morning?
Well, you know, today is a great day because May is Mental Health Month. Did you know that?
No, I didn't know that.
Well, here's another wow for you. May has been Mental Health Month since 1949.
49?
1949.
Holy cow. That's a long time.
It is, and it was all
49.
It was brought about because they wanted to bring attention to and educate people about mental health. So May is mental health, and that's when it all happens. May is Mental Health Month.
So what do you do in May?
Well, one of the things I'm doing right now, I'm here on your show, and we're talking about mental health because the whole intention of May as Mental Health Month is to shine a light on it and shine a light on what the needs are out there because so many people don't, know very much about mental health. And then, of course, there's that thing where people don't, it's okay to tell people you have a cold. You can tell people you had the flu. You can even tell people that you had a surgical procedure. But people just don't like to say, gosh, I'm bipolar. Or I have a problem with schizophrenia. It's just not one of those things people like to talk about.
Right away, you're stigmatized when you do that and admit that
and
bring it out. And then, our service people who fight for this country, they come back and, PTSD is a huge problem for those returning. And, I think it's great to have a mental health month, May, but shining that light has to continue because, when we turn around and ignore the facts, we're in trouble ourselves. Yeah. There are too many people that suffer from this, and it's not good.
No, and you mentioned post-traumatic stress syndrome, and we do see people who are in the service who are sent to us by their units, and many of them coming back from service, and they have post-traumatic stress syndrome and that sort of thing. It's sad to see, but they get good help where they are with us, and then they can get back out there and get going with their life.
But post-traumatic stress can not just come from those who are in the service.
Correct.
I mean, there are individuals in this country who undergo stress and trauma at the same time, and especially in their living quarters. Sometimes when they're being brought up as children, sometimes in a relationship in life. And so it's not just exclusively for our soldiers, it's also for others in the community that we can't forget.
People that have traumatic events in their life. For instance, I survived the 1964 earthquake up in Alaska that was 2 on the Richter scale, lasted for 5 whole minutes. Well, there are a lot of people that have stress still to this day. They deal with issues from that. Whenever there's a shaking or something, they get terrified because of what they went through. And so, yes, it can be anything. Somebody that unfortunately is a victim of rape or a victim of some kind of a terrible crash, or let's say they were on a boat on a cruise and it sank or something. I mean, those people are going to suffer from a lot. So,
well, it's interesting because now, and I've been in this country for 70 years, but I lived in England during the war. And every time a siren sounded to take cover, I would, and even when I hear the sirens now, and if there is a thunderstorm, the thunder scares me to death. I mean, I actually tighten up, but logically, I know what it is.
Right.
But it takes me back to England during the Second World War. It's, when you hear loud crashes, bombs dropping, I'm sure that's what it is.
Post-traumatic stress. Yep. Yeah, absolutely. Well, one of the things that for your audience here that I wanted to mention while I'm here, and with respect to May as Mental Health Month, is a great time to bring up senior suicide. Mm-hmm. Not something we like to talk about very much,
right.
But I have a surprise for your listeners because they probably don't realize this. What age group has the highest rate of suicide of any age group? Now, when I ask that, when I'm speaking places, people almost always raise their hand and say, people that are in college because they go through a lot of stress. But that's not true. The highest age group, highest rate of suicide, people 85 years of age and older. Isn't that sad? Now, hold on to your hats. The second highest rate of suicide is among those between 74 years of age and 84. So from 74 years of age on up, look out. And here's a third one. Here's a third amazing fact. The suicide rate over the age of 75 is 3 times higher than average among white males. White males are really out there.
Really? That's incredible.
It's one of the best-kept secrets in town.
Isn't that sad?
And it's very sad that, and I think our listeners, for some of our listeners, it may have struck a chord with them, but, I think they are aware as they look around at their friends. And, we know statistically also that when younger individuals attempt suicide, they aren't as successful as seniors are. Seniors find a way to make sure when they go. And I think part of that is they are living life and saying, hey, I've lived my life, and I'm okay with going now. And sorry to say that I believe that there are some people who pass away in their sleep. Mm-hmm. I think that sometimes it's not really that. Sometimes they've just gotten to the point where they just say, I've had it, and they have accumulated enough pills to be able to do something about it and end their life.
And that there's a couple of factors that can be at play as well. One is that over half the people 65 years of age and older believe that depression is a normal part of aging, and it isn't. Not at all.
It isn't. Absolutely is not.
And most older Americans know little to nothing about depression and what it means. And they don't understand that depression can very well lead to suicide. Mm-hmm. And here's what's going on with a lot of seniors, and your listeners know this. Medical issues. Dealing with medical issues, in some cases rather bad medical issues, right. Very severe. It causes a lot of limitations. There's also the fact that they lose their ability to be independent, and that's not a lot of fun. I remember when my mother had to give up driving. That really bothered her. But it gets worse than that. The other thing is loss of a spouse. As you know, Dr. Dorio, there is a huge percentage of people that are clinically depressed a year after their spouse has passed.
10 years.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So all of this in play, and then on top of that, their loved ones, their caretakers, don't know the signs of depression, so they can't connect the dots. And so what happens? The person is alone, and they get sick and tired of it, and they say, that's it, I'm done. Mm-hmm. How sad is that? I mean, here's a life that has so much more to live and so much more to do, and they just get tired of it. And contribute.
Because they feel they're not worthy now.
Yeah.
They've lived their life, but to gain all the experiences of life, even sometimes subtle things, that's an advantage that can be passed on to the younger generations. But many of our seniors just don't feel they're going to be doing that or have a place to do that.
And when I speak to seniors, that's one of the things I always talk about, Dr. Dorio. I tell them, I said, you have so much to give. You have so much wisdom. You've lived it. People in their 20s think they've got it. But they don't. I'm sorry, they don't. If you want to talk to somebody, I worked in the film and television industry before going into work with Henry Mayo, and I can tell you that sitting down and talking to somebody that had been around for a long time. They had some great stories to tell me. They'd had some phenomenal experiences, and I learned a lot from them, and I respected being able to sit down with them and talk. And that's just something that you can't do with just anybody. I mean, so when you're talking, and it's so funny because a lot of seniors say, "Well, I've been around a long time, but I really don't have anything to tell anybody." Oh, yes, you do.
That's right.
Oh, yes, you may not think so, but I bet you anything. You sit down there and start talking to somebody, they're going to go, "Wow, that's an amazing thing what you just told me." So you're right, Dr. Dorio. They have so much to contribute. I want to give a phone number, because we talk about what can somebody do if they're feeling suicidal, and they may not want to go to the emergency department. They may not even want to tell a loved one, but guess what? There's somebody that will listen to them no matter what. All they have to do is call the National Suicide Prevention Lifeline, they call it. Here's the number, and I'm going to give you a chance at home to pick up a pen and paper, and you can write this down. I'll say it a couple of times. 1-800-273-8255. One more time. 1-800-273-8255. And that's the National Suicide Prevention Lifeline. You guess what? You get an actual person on the end of the phone who will listen to you. And you don't necessarily have to be standing there getting ready to do it. I mean, you can just say, "Look, I've just about come to the end of my rope here." They'll listen to you. Great service. Won't cost you anything.
Now, is this... It's the full gamut of age groups that can call this phone
anybody.
number. And
anybody.
Barbara, you know that those at the other end of the phone are trained to receive phone calls from the full gamut of age groups out there.
That's right.
Absolutely.
That's
if you're
right.
14 years old, you can pick up the phone and call. As a matter of fact, over at College of the Canyons, whenever they have a health fair, this is one of the things that they promote is this suicide lifeline. And in fact, I've told you this before, but it's fun. They have some wonderful pizza there at COC. I don't know if you've tasted it, but it's good stuff. Here's what they'll do. They'll offer free pizza to the students over there, but they tell them, before we give you a slice of pizza, we have to see you put this phone number in your cell phone. So they all do. So I would venture to guess if you went on campus at COC, most of the people that are there would probably have this number in their cell phone.
That's very interesting. Well, I know what it is to be depressed. I lost a son 31 years ago, and I felt like committing suicide. And I took my motorcycle up to the end of the street, up on the hill, and I was going to run it off, and I stopped and I thought, wait a minute, Barbara, you have 2 other children who need you. And at the same time, I had just gone through a separation, which didn't help matters at all. And Chuck was in Henry Mayo. And before that, he was in Sherman Oaks Hospital.
Oh, my goodness.
And he died of AIDS. He got it from a tainted blood, a blood transfusion in the early 80s.
Now, that's very tragic, but you said something a moment ago that intrigued me. You said your motorcycle. You were a motorcycle mama? You rode a bike? Really?
Yeah, the whole family used to ride motorcycles.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah, and bicycles. We used to go out to Indian Dunes, and they would have bicycle races. And my 2 boys and my daughter and I would go out with our bicycles and race and race and race. And I remember falling off once, and I got out of the way, and my son came by, and he said, "Mother, get back on that bike." And I did. And I finished the race.
But it's sad that you were going to do something after the death of your son.
Thinking about it.
I really was. And he was a gifted motorcycle racer.
World class.
He raced. He was the first American to race the Paris-Dakar.
Was that
which was 8,700 miles.
Now, see, you just said something.
What's that?
That was very fascinating. What you just said. Now, somebody in their 20s probably couldn't have that story to tell, right?
No,
Remember what I was
very
talking
true.
about? See?
Yes, that's very true.
I mean, you've done something very interesting. I would not have ever guessed that you would be a motorcycle person.
Oh, yes.
But obviously you were dedicated.
Oh,
you did
absolutely.
A lot of that.
We loved it. And Russ and I used to I used to ride a 750 Honda.
I have to tell you
and he had a Honda 1000.
I have to tell you my sad motorcycle story. When I got into my teens, I wanted to have a motorcycle. Well, I found out, unfortunately, that my father, when my mother and dad were first married, my father had an Indian motorcycle, and he rode it to and from work. Mm-hmm. And they lived off of a dirt road, and he came home one night and didn't know that they'd been putting gravel in the potholes. Oh. He lost control of his bike, and he skidded on the gravel, and when he finally showed up at home, he was all ripped up and bloody, and Mom said, what happened? He told her, and she said, okay, that's it, you're off the motorcycle, you're parking, and he said, you got it. So when I came along and wanted to ride a motorcycle, my mom and dad looked at me and they said, not so much.
Well, everybody used to say to me, you're crazy. You're absolutely crazy. But you learn how to ride a motorcycle. And my son Chuck was very, very good at it. And he always told me, he said, Mom, if you ever lose control, he said, tuck and roll when you get off that bike. When you're thrown off, you just double up into a circle and just roll. And he said, you'd be surprised how many people's lives have been saved by doing that rather than just splat, because you
ouch.
You can really hurt yourself. But it's amazing. I fell 3 times. But Chuck had told me, he says, Mom, tuck and roll. Yeah. And that's what they did. That's what they learned to do in, riding the motorcycles, because all 3 of my kids rode motorcycles. But it's but getting back to the depression, I was very depressed. And losing a child is one of the worst losses anyone can experience.
Oh, absolutely. Well, I'm in sync with you on that because, as you know, and I mentioned it here before, my wife and I lost our son, our adult son. Now I think it was 4 years ago. But oh heavens, what a horrible thing to have to go through. No parent should have to do that.
It's absolutely terrible. It's worse than terrible.
Yeah. And we didn't end up in the same, mindset as you did, but it can certainly happen, absolutely. Can I give that number once again for anyone out there? And this is, again, not just for seniors. Anybody of any age can call this. This is the National Suicide Prevention Lifeline. And there's a live person on the end of the phone just waiting for you. 1-800-273-8255. That could be a lifesaver, Dr. Dorio.
Yeah, I just put that number into my cell phone, so I'm going over to COC right now to get my pizza.
Now, now, go see Larry Shallard, because you know Larry very well.
Absolutely.
And tell him I'm here for my pizza. Because I told Larry that last time I was on your show, I told this story, and Larry said, hey, they're welcome to get a slice of pizza anytime if you do that.
In fact, there's a meeting tomorrow over there. I've got it down in my calendar. I'm going to make that one.
But what, Mike? What do our seniors do who are listening? Who they know we always say to them, go to the senior center. But when they're looking to tuck and roll and try to figure out their life, what else should they do? Where else should they seek help other than the hotline?
Well, call everybody. Call your friends. Tell them what's going on.
Family.
Find somebody that will listen to you. Somebody that won't say, oh, come on, just go take a shower, pull yourself out of it. You'll be okay. Get out there in the garden and dig around. Forget it. If they tell you that, then they're not listening to you.
Yeah.
That's right.
You need to find somebody that will, whether it's clergy, whether it's a friend, whether it's somebody, anybody. If somebody delivers medicine to your house, stop them and say, hey, I got to talk to somebody. Don't take no for an answer.
Well, it's interesting because I was involved in starting the community hotline up here in the 70s. And we made it so that we had a 24-hour hotline. And the calls would come into the center and they would shoot it out to all the women at home or men at home who were on duty and listening. And some of the calls were really some of those people were really suicidal.
Well,
and a lot of it involved drugs. and alcohol. Those kinds of things don't help.
Well, let me tell you a quick story, and I think I've mentioned this here before, but at the Behavioral Health Unit at Henry Mayo, one of the things we do is I make calls to people after they've left our unit, just as a well call. How you doing? Did you get your medication? Have you going to do your follow-up with any of your doctors? And I called a lady, and she was not doing well at all. She was horrible on the phone. I could tell that she was in a bad way, and I flat out asked her at a certain point, I said, Are you so depressed that you're thinking about suicide again? And she said, yes, and as a matter of fact, I have no idea how I'm going to make it through this. So I asked her if she had friends you can call. How can you get to the emergency department immediately? She had no way. So what I did was I asked her if I could call the psychiatric mobile response team. And this was in Ventura. And she said, yes, you can. And I said, I'm going to do it. And so I said, you just don't do anything. You wait. They're going to be there shortly. I called him, told him where she was, told her what was going on. They showed up, and she ended up in our unit. And somebody pointed her out to me, and I went up to her and I said, hi, I'm Mike. I'm so glad to see you're doing better. And she looked at me, and with tears rolling down her cheek, she said, you saved my life.
Yes.
Wow. So that's the impact somebody can have if they just listen.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yep. And you go through all kinds of training when you on a hotline.
Right.
You do. And role playing, all kinds of things.
And one of the things that we want to do to dispel a myth, most people think that if you talk about suicide with somebody that's contemplating suicide, that will cause them to do it. That's not true. It's not true at all. That's been proven to be absolutely false. Correct, Dr. Dorio?
Correct.
Yeah.
That is very correct.
So let's give that number out again.
Sure.
Mike.
1-800-273-8255. And that's the National Suicide Prevention Lifeline. There's a live person waiting to talk to you.
And that is so important. It is so important. Well, thank you, Mike, for joining us this morning. It's been a long time.
May is Mental Health Month.
Yes, May is Mental Health Month. And hopefully we'll see you again soon.
Thank you. It's been a pleasure.
Great. I'm Barbara Cochran with my co-host, Dr. Jean Dorio, on your hometown station, AM 1220 KHTS.